In my opinion, fandom, the culture of being a fan of something, used to be about what was in a person's heart. What you liked, and you expressed that love in any way you felt like it. Now, it seems to me that it's more about what's inside a person's wallet. In other words, how much of a fan you are is directly related to how big your DVD collection is, your CD collection, that kind of thing. Like how much you would, could, or were willing to spend on a thing somehow is an indication of how pure your feeling is for that fandom. Expendable income somehow trumping the purity of heart. I'm sure we've all seen videos of people holding up this item or that they've either collected or outright purchased. Like if they weren't holding it up for all to see, someone wouldn't believe the darn thing even existed. A lot of people do it, but I see it most in the hashtag vinyl community. People holding up a record jacket like it was a proof of life photo. Here's a record or whatever I discovered, and to prove it, I'll hold it up. Well, I guess it conveys the idea that they somehow know something about the thing in their hands, which is usually not the case. Thank Chrome for Wikipedia, eh, kids? There are a lot of so-called experts online these days, and while these fine folks may be fans, or even I dare say super fans, they often lack the informed perspective born of what I call time in the chair. But what is time in the chair, you ask? Simply put, it's watching movie after movie, reading book after book, or listening to album after album. Not for years, but oftentimes decades, of ingesting a vast amount of information about something of import, not just what you think is swell, until they gain, via ardent investigation or casual osmosis, a comprehensive knowledge of said subject. Not just scratching the surface of a discipline, but diving deep into it. Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Outliers, said that you must spend roughly 10,000 hours of deliberate practice in order to achieve a mastery of something. That means doing the heavy lifting, learning the tropes, doing the research beyond the superficial, learning the history so that we might understand the future. Most importantly, though, it's the gaining of an understanding regarding what went into the thing's creation, how the damn thing works, and how it might be being sold to you via promotion, repeated exposure, advertising, that sort of thing. But most importantly of all, it highlights the need to look critically at the things you like and enjoy, to look at its structure, its past, and going beyond your own comfort level and preconceived notions. For example, I know a lot of people who have said to me, I don't watch black and white movies. I don't like films with subtitles. Well, the amount of amazing films that they are excluding themselves from is astronomical. More to the point, it's unconscionable, it's short-sighted, and it's stupid. It also calls into question that person's credibility as a so-called expert. Here's another example. I hate musicals, I've heard. Really? All of them? Because things like On the Town, Stephen Sondheim, White Christmas, Guys and Dolls, West Side Story, Meet Me in St. Louis are all pretty wonderful motion pictures. Now, this isn't about merely being a fan. Anyone can be one of those. All you have to do is like something. This is more about gaining context of a given genre or medium in order to be able to speak intelligently upon it. And look, I get it. We all like what we like, but it's just so important to know not only the conventions of the things that we appreciate, but also understanding from whence they came. For example, I do a lot of talking on this channel about the need to know where we came from by looking at things from the past in order to conceptualize the places we need to be going. Again, learning from history so that we might prognosticate the future. Without this regimen, this time in the chair, it's impossible to speak with any degree of cogency on it, to give an informed opinion beyond that of an average person merely thinking, hey, that was neat. Let me use myself as an example. I've watched 3 to 5 movies a day since I was a kid, starting sometime, not to portray my age, but back in the mid-60s. My mom used to have me sit down with her and watch everything. So much so that I joke about having been raised DeMillian, meaning that my mom's idea of religious education was a result of watching Cecil B. DeMille films. I can't tell you how confused I was when I saw Moses showing up on the Planet of the Apes. The same went for musicals, crime dramas, comedies, you name it. Books. When I was a kid, back in grade school, I was extremely lucky. I didn't think I was lucky at the time, but you never do when you were a kid. I was enrolled in speed reading courses using something, it's a projector called an EDL controlled reader. It was basically a film strip projector you could set to a specific number of words per minute, between 60 and 1,000. It would first start showing you a word or two and begins to slowly speed up over time. At a certain point, the illuminated words would change to full lines that would just click by. This method forced you to read faster. Then they would have you take comprehension tests to see what you remembered of what you read, whether you were just watching the words click by or really understanding what you were seeing on the page. As a result, I became a voracious reader. These days, I still read a book quickly, usually one a week, and I read it as comprehensively as I can. And as I get to the end of one book, I'm already thinking about the next book I'm going to pick up and scour. I go through used bookstores. You've seen the videos if you're a subscriber to this channel, and I prowl various online forums and YouTube channels for tidbits and heads up. Needless to say, my to-be read pile is massive. And music. Again, I consider myself extremely lucky. My mom was a big fan of music and played a lot of different styles while I was growing up, which was an ace up my sleeve when I started selling records at record stores, and an older person would come in and ask me about, let's say, Hugo Montenegro. Speaking of, having worked in a lot of record stores over the years, I was exposed to a ton of music since everyone got a turn at the turntable. So music selections would often go from rock to blues to jazz to classical to country with great regularity. Further, the places where I worked had a rule. If there was more than 3 copies of something, you could open one to play in the store. So yeah, I opened a lot of records in my day. Ask me sometime and I'll show you a cool trick on how to do that. When I was at the warehouse as a manager, I was able to bring home copies of everything that came out so that I could listen to them and become acquainted with them. As a buyer for Record Factory and Tower, I could then order anything my blackened little heart desired, and it desired a lot. As a result, I'm not someone who tends to listen to a record again and again. There are things that are out there that I like, but there are also far too many amazing albums that I've never heard of or never heard just to focus on one thing. I listen to it once, maybe twice, scratch it off a list, and then I move on to the next thing. Cut to just the other day when someone asked me where I find the things I share on this channel. Well, I actually compile lists of titles I feel that I need to hear, from suggested playlists on Spotify to taking notes of top 25 or whatever videos on YouTube, from channels like Sea of Tranquility, The Prog Corner, various jazz channels, and from groups like Vinyl Community and their show and tells. Crate Divers make great videos for this as well. I also check new releases and routinely post a graphic of 100 to 200 new albums on my Facebook page every Friday. And another thing is that I keep a notebook handy just in case I know someone that suggests a movie, a book, or a record that I might like. Or if I hear something in the coffee shop, I always check what it is on Shazam. And that's not even mentioning my habit of going to Wikipedia and getting complete discographies of certain record labels I found. My latest deep dives have been into the Buddha and Pablo Records labels, but other recent ones have been like Charisma, Harvest, Brain, Silence, Vertigo, ECM, and Windham Hill. Films are the same way. I recently went through the top 100 films in 100 years that the British Film Institute released. I printed it out, went through it title after title, marking off what I'd seen, and then going out and trying to find the things that I hadn't. I'm still working my way through it, and it's been very informative. This is not me tooting my own horn. I'm just saying I worked at it, man. I try to remain inquisitive enough to follow up even the slightest mention of something good. Of course, Sturgeon's law applies. Theodore Sturgeon, the science fiction writer, said in the 50s that 90% of everything in the universe is crap. I've found over the years that he's 100% correct. So my message to you all is this: be curious, be careful. Question the people, even me, who dole out this information to try to convince you to like something or to think that something sounds like it might be something for you. I mean, the reason I provide links to everything in the description of my videos is that you have the opportunity to go and watch and to read and to listen everything that I suggest for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. So be inquisitive, be dogged. Don't accept a thing just because some chucklehead on the internet tells you that you should. It's a big world out there, and you can find all sorts of cool things if you just open your minds to the fact that you'll go to your grave having only barely scratched the surface. Anything you could imagine is out there for the taking. I sometimes play a game with myself where I take a genre of music and I match it to a random country, plug that into a search engine, and I'm always shocked with what I find. Like, did you know that there was an active surf scene in Cambodia in the early 60s? Well, until the Khmer Rouge came and killed everybody. There's even a terrific documentary you can find on YouTube and I think on Tubi called Don't Think I've Forgotten Cambodia's Lost Rock and Roll. Or did you know that in Yugoslavia, there was a thriving Latin music scene around the same time? Look up Jugaton record label sometime and you'll be amazed by what you'll find. Or that polka had an influence on regional music in Argentina. It seems like a lot of Germans emigrated there after World War II. Look for a style of music called chamamé for more information. But you get it, at least you should by now. It's a big world out there, kids, and you should do your due diligence and to investigate all of it. Trust me, you'll be infinitely rewarded for your efforts. And so, as Sean Connery said in The Untouchables, here endeth the lesson.